No.
Yeah.
Laddie, Ollie, Matt and Taro, let's talk about rugby league. And really 70 minutes of the Warriors was fantastic after a slow start. I thought they looked really good on Monday night. We looked like we could score points from just about anywhere on the park. What were the highlights for people?
I thought Nathan Friend had a much improved game on week 1. I thought he sort of gelled with our halves a lot more, and his service was, I thought, a lot crisper. Some good decision making as well. I thought he controlled the ruck pretty well. I thought that was definitely one sort of noticeable improvement from round 1.
I thought James Maloney showed a lot of leadership in the halves, which was quite good. I think it was pretty even in the way our offence flowed.
For me, the big thing about the halves and the playmaking role generally was the way that you saw both Elijah Taylor and Kevin Locke try to have that ball playing role. And they both made mistakes with it, but that's really promising because the more players you can have inserting themselves, and Locke put through a good grubber kick at one point and that kind of thing. I think giving yourself more and more options the Warriors just looked excellent on attack for most of the game.
Yep.
I thought Lewis Brown actually spent quite a lot of time too in the halves, and that first receiver, it was quite noticeable the amount of touches he had, I thought.
It's an interesting one because it's not a role he's really played before.
It's a bit unclear exactly what sort of role he is going to play this year, but he's obviously going to be an important player, but it's just a matter of figuring out where his minutes are going to come.
Yeah, the second row is coming back as well. The hot potato moment near the 70th minute was a bit of a highlight. 60th minute, sorry. But yeah, just the willingness to offload and Cats having a go. It was great stuff. I quite liked our use of substitutions. I think Louis did well in that. I think that was probably his influence on the game. I think that worked really well. Mateo coming off later in the first half, bringing Louis Brown on. It just kind of like controlled the flow of the game a bit in our favour. I thought that was great.
Yeah, you certainly really notice when Mateo comes back on the field after a breather, the energy levels in him are just massive. He goes looking for the ball and gets plenty of touches.
Yeah, props played well this week as well.
So a big question for me coming out of this game is Elijah Taylor's future role, because for me he was the best player in a Warriors jersey.
Yep.
But as soon as Michael Luck comes back, 13 is gone, and you'd think he might get squeezed out of the 17 altogether with Louis Brown there as well. I mean, we've got an embarrassment of riches there, but does anyone have any thoughts about where he'll go later on in the season?
Well, I don't think he'll be squeezed out of the 17 for a start. Elijah Taylor's actually number 3 on the season's tackling list. He's made 88 tackles already this season, so I don't think they're going to be taking out their
He's
best.
so busy on defence.
They're not going to be taking out their best defender anytime quickly.
Really
I think they'll just have to push him into the second row, and someone will have to squeeze out of there. I think he's too.
Who though?
Well, Mateo maybe. I mean, they used Mateo off the bench quite a lot last year.
Yeah, but you've got in the second row you've got Mannering, Mateo, and Brown, and you're only going to have one second row on the bench. So
Mateo off the bench would be pretty good. I mean, you can have great players coming off the bench.
yeah.
I think that Ben Henry role he might take.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it could be either you spend a few minutes in the centres here and there, patch up a few holes. It's pretty versatile.
It's like a big utility.
Yeah.
There you go.
Or you put Brown into the centres and you move. You move him into the second row.
I definitely think we want Mateo starting for the sheer fact that if we had Luck, Taylor and Mannering as our 3 sort of back rowers, it's a lot of defensive work, 3 defensive workhorses. When you've got Nathan Friend in there as well, you need a bit of impact, I think, in the second row.
It's a good point you make though, Chiz. I mean, once these sort of stalwarts come back, they're obviously going to go straight into the sort of starting lineup. And there's these combinations that are getting formed now early in the season, and we might actually be on quite a roll. They're coming back sort of around week 7, week 8. It might actually be disruptive to have them all coming back in at the same time. It'd be interesting to see.
Well, Bluey McLennan has shown that he'll throw a cat amongst the pigeons a wee bit on selection. I mean, keeping Inu in the Vulcans in the first week and then starting him from the bench in this game.
And he's going to do it again this week as well.
So yeah, you never know where he will go, but you'd have to think Michael Luck comes back into the team. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and the Repair brothers really. I mean, they've got Lillyman. These are sort of quality footballers.
So, huge game this week against the Dogs, who were excellent on the weekend. I mean, I think we're up for it though.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, the Dogs' strong start to the year. Looks like Desi is taking that Manly culture straight to the Dogs and instilled it into them straight away. They just looked absolutely clinical against the Dragons last week.
Back at Mount Smart.
Good.
Be good to see the lads back out that way.
Home.
Expect a big crowd, I'd imagine, as well.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be a good game. You know, they're both quite free-flowing football teams, as we've seen from the last couple of weeks. I think, you know, the Warriors are letting in a lot of points, but they're scoring a lot of points. And that's the point that Phil Gould made, you know, straight after the match. You know, like the Warriors play like the NYC team. You know, they can score from absolutely anywhere at any time they want, but they're also going to concede a few points throughout the process. You know.
Now, we want to move on to the big issue, which is linked to something that Tara brought to the table last week, which is about the question of signing players mid-season, whether the model's right, and maybe we need a transfer window and that kind of thing. We've put a bit more thought into the issue, and where do you see this one going, Tara? What are some other solutions we can look at?
Well, excuse me, I'm just eating a meagerine from Orange Kingdom.
How is it?
Delicious, $9, what a bargain.
Excellent.
But in the last week, there's been talk of a player draft being brought in by the Players Association.
What's up? Oh, fuck, I forgot.
What's up?
How's it going?
Good day.
Everyone, this is my sister Liz.
Liz.
What, Liz?
Okay, what's been
Fuck, I
keeping
forgot it
you
was a Wednesday.
busy?
No, no.
Alright.
Oh, so did I interrupt it?
Oh, no.
I mean, it's on. It's staying on there. Surely.
Shit, you can cut that out, can't you?
No.
Well,
No.
will we
We're
cut it
keeping
out?
it in, yeah.
No apologies. Not too worried.
I can't even remember what I was talking about now.
Compact.
The player draft.
Yeah.
Player draft, yep. So I think
Yeah.
they're bringing a player draft
Take a
to
look at the video.
help strengthen the weaker teams.
Yeah.
So teams like Melbourne, which don't have a strong junior area, want to help teams like that. But I don't know how we're working at NRL. We've seen they've got an under-20 competition already set up. It's not like an NBA or an NFL where they can go back to the college system and try and pick players from there. It's just a little bit more complicated.
So the problem for me with the draft is that a team that has, like the Warriors do, a really strong under-20s culture, if you have a draft, then the club themselves have put the effort into developing those young players, and then potentially they lose them.
The loser, yeah.
So that aspect worries me. Maybe if players declare themselves free agents or something like that, they go into a draft, that could work.
Yeah, I was thinking you could perhaps have some sort of system where each club gets to protect, I don't know, 1, 2, maybe 3 players each year. So every year, players that are eligible for the draft, the Warriors could say, no, we develop this player, we're taking X, Y, and Z. The rest of our players that are going into the draft are up for grabs, some sort of thing. You've definitely got to create a system whereby teams that develop their own players, there's an incentive to do so, and they get to retain them.
Does this acknowledge that the salary cap doesn't do enough though? Because that's what it's there for. It's to try to make the competition really even, because clubs that are strong, ultimately players get forced out by the cap and they have to go elsewhere. And I mean, the NRL is historically a pretty close competition with a lot more upsets than other sports. But do we want to go even further down that line?
I don't know. I mean, the NBA's obviously got a salary cap as well. It's not a hard cap like the NRL, but I think the draft system still works over there. I think the big issue logistically is the fact that those junior clubs just have direct ties to the seniors. There's no sort of getting around that. It's not like the college system. So coming up with some sort of solution for that.
And I just don't really see if there's any massive reason for it at the moment. I mean, as you said yourself, Chiz, it is a very close competition. We do see upsets all over the show, and we see a lot of teams coming from the bottom 8 up into the top 8 regularly. You're always going to have a few teams that sort of do dominate, but at the same time, I mean, it wasn't so long ago that the Panthers were dominating the NRL. So I just don't know if there's a great need for it at this stage.
So I guess part of what it's responding to is what we were talking about last week, which is signings happening all the way through the first half of the season. And if you have a draft system, presumably you create rules around how some of those other signings work. Although maybe they're completely separate issues. I don't know.
One thing that will help, it's not really that relevant at the moment, but when the expansion teams come in, if you're a team, like say Perth, hypothetically, Perth or Adelaide, there's not going to be a lot of players that are going to want to move up and leave and play for those teams. This is what happened to the Warriors earlier and when they started up. Players didn't want to move to New Zealand to play. It'll help teams to actually get those decent players to come over. But yeah, like I said, it's more down the road than anything.
And it's not a massive issue at the moment for New Zealand. It's not like there's
exactly.
any sort of lack of talent coming through.
They have done that in the AFL with the expansion teams, Greater Western Sydney and the Gold Coast. I think Greater Western Sydney last year got 7 of the top 10 picks in the draft, just to help them establish a roster. And then the problem is, I guess, in 5
And they got
6 years,
Falau as well.
yeah, in 5 or 6 years' time, they'll be looking pretty strong.
They have an established draft system,
Yeah,
and it's similar to American sports.
yeah, very similar. Yeah, so their players come out of the, I think it's the VFL, like the Victorian Football League. So it's not just young guys; it's young guys and also
Yeah,
just
I
older
guess
guys that haven't even
international
quite made
players
it.
as well.
Yeah,
Sort of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Righto. Well, I've still got a few reservations about the draft, but I think something's got to be figured out, because I think players are increasingly acknowledging that there's problems at the moment when you have signings constantly happening through the season and distracting from the league that's on. And we were talking earlier about the way that Cameron Smith and Robbie Farah both come out and supported a transfer window, so that's one option, and I think something will change there. So now I want to hear from Taro once more, who's coming in from the World Desk. What's the big news?
Big news. So I've got the results for the Jamaican under-19, under-16 comps.
It's a real focus on the show, the Jamaican.
Yeah,
comp,
well,
so,
it's a great comp.
Yeah.
So in the under-16 final, Calabar beat St George's College 2016. Went to extra time, 16 all at full time. And I don't know if you guys remember, in one of the semi-finals, there was an all-out brawl. So the Jamaican Rugby League have said that Greater Port Monash have been disqualified for fighting.
Disqualified?
Yep.
Oh, huge.
Yep. So the winner of the other semi-final, Calabar High, have been declared the winners.
Even though they lost the match.
Oh no, they won the other semi-final.
I see.
Yeah, so they were the other finalists.
So the final wasn't played.
Hasn't been played. They were declared winners.
It must have been a pretty intense brawl.
Yeah, we'll go on YouTube and try and find
Get
it.
some footage.
How's the public reacted to that decision?
There were a few likes on Facebook. Yeah, so.
I think one of them was from Ash Sexton.
Yeah. This Saturday the German domestic competition's kicking off. So it'll be very exciting for the
they love
Germans.
their league, the Germans, don't they?
They love their league. It's their kind of thing, really. Tough physical sports.
Great.
Yep. And the Immortals, the club in Lebanon, have lost their first game in 4 years.
Oh, wow.
4 years.
It's quite a record.
Yeah. So they last lost in April 2008. And they recently lost to the Redbacks 29-20. So it was a 42 game winning streak for the Immortals. So a lot happening.
Just goes to show that they need a draft in Lebanese rugby league. Comp's not even enough.
So, Nicholas Latsky, what have you had for the injury zone?
Injury zone? Alright, well, unfortunately the finger bandit wasn't quite at play as much as last week. He did manage to catch Corey Parker though, who's out with 4 to 5 weeks with a thumb injury.
That'll ruin a few.
Yeah,
few
that'll
dream
ruin
teams.
some dream teams, that's
Yeah.
for sure, because he's a big point scorer, tackling and kicking and doing his cackling himself. Anyway, Gidley's 3 to 5 weeks out. He dislocated his shoulder. That's probably not too bad actually for the Knights there. I think that dislocated shoulder you could sort of see a few more weeks on top of that. So I think that's quite good for him. I think it was an injury he's already sustained, and he's just sort of dealing with it again. Jared Hayne,